Alrighty, if you're still here, thank you for joining me for part 3 as we're talking about forgiveness. I want to highly recommend to you that when you have time that you check out Lisa TerKeurst's book, Forgiveness, and I'll put the title and a link to it where you can purchase it on Amazon as well. I want to encourage you to read this book and take your time. You know, I read that book actually about a month ago and finished it up, and I've still been processing. I had to really pray about it before I started this encouragement series with you. And I would like to encourage you to read it for yourself. I'll put some select quotes from her work that hopefully will get you interested in it. But she does such an excellent job in this book, encouraging you and asking you questions to really kind of help you get to the root of things. All right, so now let's move on to the third part. How do we forgive ourselves? You know, that's probably been the most difficult of the different forgiveness that I've had to do in my life is forgiving myself. You know, we look back on our lives and we see that we make mistakes, we hurt people, we make decisions, we wonder, did we make the right decision, and all that. You know, they always say that hindsight's 20/20, right? But the truth is it's not. You know, the reality is that you and me, that we are flawed people, and no matter how wise we are or how good of a life we try to live, we're going to mess up and we're going to make mistakes. But you know, it's so important to forgive yourself. And I'm going to tell you why. Because you see, if you can't forgive yourself, you're going to really have a difficult time forgiving other people. And not only that, you're also going to have a very difficult time accepting God's grace. Because you see, the devil, and I've seen this in so many people's life, where they'll be trying to come to God, or they'll say they're trying to come to God, and they start making up all these excuses. Well, you know, I've got to get my life right to come to God, or I've done this, or I'm doing this. And I've even had people tell me that they're in this sin and they're still doing the sin and they don't even know how to stop doing the sin. And they think they can't come to God. You see, not forgiving yourself is kind of the same thing. It's a way of protecting yourself. You know, we think that as long as you're upset with ourselves and as long as we are guarding our hearts and being cautious and being careful that we are protecting ourselves. Now, let me go ahead and say this, and Lisa TerKeurst does a really good job of explaining it. She has a chapter in her book that's entitled Boundaries. And I completely agree with her about it. And what she says is that, you know, we need to have healthy boundaries in our life, that people are going to hurt us. But the worst thing we can do is not have an open heart. And part of opening our heart is recognizing our own ugliness and realizing that, yes, you know, I don't have to have it all together. You know why? Because I'm a flawed human being. You know, what God asks is that you and I trust Him. God never says anywhere in Scripture that there's going to be this magical moment that's going to happen in your life, that you're going to stop struggling with sin, or that you're going to just suddenly become perfect. Yes, Jesus does say that you need to become perfect like your Father in heaven. But what we don't realize is when you look at that in the original Greek it's not talking about a one-time perfection. It's talking about the process. It's a daily process of becoming more Christ-like. And so, you know, sometimes we just don't forgive ourselves because we hold on to that shame and that guilt. And sometimes, I'll be honest with you, we're even guilty. There are times where I've been angry at myself because other people have mistreated me, right? I'm like, well, God, why can't I just let this go? Or God, you know, why didn't I have better boundaries? Or why didn't I confront this person and set them down and let's work this out before it became such an issue? So part of forgiveness is not just forgiving other people, but also forgiving yourself. Because you see, what I'm learning is if I can't show grace to myself and not willing to, this will be very difficult to show grace to anybody else. And you know, I'll be honest with you, it's been very, very difficult this past year. And I would imagine your life has been difficult too. Not just the COVID, but all the different aspects of that. You know, as a teacher, former teacher, and as a youth pastor, I look back and think, well, you know, I should have done this, or I should have done that, or, you know, why didn't I try this? Or, you know, and I look back and I think, well, I wish I'd handled this a little differently or done that. But the reality is the past is over. And you know what God encourages us to do in His Word, in multiple places, is to cast all of our burdens on Him including the sorrows and the grief that we have, and to trust in His forgiveness. You see, we don't have to forgive ourselves. You know why? Because God already has. And you know what? When I see people who are bitter, and I've been hurt by bitter people, and I know you have been too. If you've ever dealt with a bitter person, they're usually not very fun to deal with, are they? A bitter person is somebody who is just not forgiven themselves yet. And so I encourage you, if you're watching this video and you're struggling with that, ask God to give you grace. And not only that God would give you grace, but that His grace would just fill you up to overflow into the lives of other people. You see, that's the antidote to all the unforgiveness.